those day one people, they really helped this campaign. It gave fuel to this rocket to really allow it to flourish to where it is now.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Launch Boom podcast. Again, today we have the creator of Ascendancy, a tabletop game that as of today has raised $348,000 and still has 5 days to go with 2,353 backers. Matthew Meeple is the creator, and we have him here today to share with us the story behind how he created the game and also his background and what led up to the creation of the game. So welcome to the podcast, Matthew.
Thanks for having me. And I really like what you guys do. Is it okay if I say I'm a customer of yours as well? Because you guys certainly helped my campaign, so appreciate all the work you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. Speak all the praise about Launch Boom. We more than welcome that. But I would love to start with the very beginning. What led up to the creation of this game?
All right, I'll take you way back. My journey as a game creator, started in the late 80s, I'd say, with Dungeons and Dragons. I became a dungeon master because nobody else wanted to do it. But it was fun for me to kind of create my own worlds. I could put my friends in them and give them horrible situations that they had to think their way out of or roll their way out of. So it was a lot of fun. I never thought you could make any money making games. But I was a big computer gamer. I played a lot of MMOs in the 90s. I downloaded shareware in the 80s. So I was around for lots of generations of gaming. And all this is to say, I think before I started to think about throwing my hat in the ring to create my own game, I really had a whole life out of experience as a gamer that I could call upon. Even though I never published my own game, I knew a thing or two about what worked, and I just had such great experiences that I knew I would love to put something together that I could share with other people that would give them some of the great moments that I had in my life as a gamer. So that's kind of my background a bit. That's on the gaming side. On the business side, I've always been entrepreneurial. I've started a few businesses. I sold one of them for a very modest six-figure exit. Emphasis on modest because it certainly wasn't enough to retire or quit working a full-time job. But my goal for Ascendancy was to really make it undeniable to the point that eventually I could quit my day job and just become a publisher and really do this full-time. And it's been a long journey to get to that point. So all the marketing, all the sales, all the things that I learned in my past, all of it culminated to this one successful project that you see today on a Kickstarter. But I also had a lot of help, obviously working with Launch Boom and lots of other real professionals has been super helpful for me to get it to this point. So a lot's gone into it. It's not just some overnight success, as some people might think when they see, oh, look, Ascendancy, $300,000 on a Kickstarter. It's been a lot of blood, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears to get to this point.
Yeah. So did you have a following that you already developed prior to the launch of the game, or was it all developed the 30, 60, or even 90 days prior to the launch of the game? Because this is your first game that you published. Right.
Yeah, I started a long time ago. I started marketing 5 years ago when I first started designing the game. I brought this game to Gen Con in 2018 and paid thousands of dollars to get there and put the game together and got it in front of a bunch of very critical gamers for the first time. And the first feedback I got was, hey, with this win condition, I can't actually win the game. I had a broken game. So as far as those are like my first people that ever heard of the game. I got them onto a list, put them in a database, and I still have all those people from years ago who've been with me. Now, is it the best marketing strategy to start 5 years ago when you're marketing a project? Probably not, because it's not a very sustainable business, right? So hopefully the next one I do, I won't take 5 years to finish it. But this one, it needed a lot of time in the oven to get it ready because it's a huge game. There's a lot of mechanics, a lot of things going on. And the marketing, I knew that I wanted to start as early as possible. And thankfully, I know I've retained some of those people. Once I get the final numbers from Kickstarter at the end of the campaign, I'll be provided all those email lists. I'll be able to cross-reference and actually provide some updates to say, oh, I had 15% or whatever of people who were with me 5 years ago actually pledged the game today. I'm sure that number is less than the people who have gotten on board more recently, let's say 3-6 months ago, because it's fresher in their minds. But I figured why not have both, right? Why not start as early as possible, despite the fact that I didn't have all of the assets. I didn't have, everything was a prototype. Everything was a work in progress. But I knew that it was an opportunity to not squander. If you have time, that's a very valuable thing. I figured, granted, I didn't know it would take 5 years, but I always felt like I was close to getting somewhere finished with it. Anyway, long way to say, I've been marketing a long time. I've always known it was important. But yeah, working with professionals was also a really key part of it, not just doing it myself.
That's fantastic. So what would you say is the estimated breakdown of that list? Like how many people did you, or what percentage of people did you accumulate over the first, let's say from 2018 and 2022? And then what percentage of the list was accumulated in 2023?
I think if you looked at it on a graph and you put 2018 starting up to today, 2023, it would look like kind of like this, and then at the end like that, right? So I think it was a very slow burn. Took a long time.
So just for people listening, right? What Matthew did was create like exponential curve ocean with his hands.
Yeah, it was. It's certainly exponential. For example, before launching on Kickstarter last month, we had about 4,000 people on our Notify Me list on Kickstarter. Since launching then, we've added at least double that, if not more. I think we're approaching 9,000 or even 10,000 at this point. So I'd say 5 years ago, we were lucky if we had 100 or 200 people on the list. So it definitely has grown more people as we've gotten closer to launch.
So how did you go about accumulating that list with that exponential curve in 2023? Because everyone knows, I mean, I'm looking at your chart right now, Matthew, and the first 24 hours, I'm seeing $111,296 raised. And that gets you ranked on the platform, gets you in front of a lot more potential prospective customers and buyers of your game. I think that's, the part that a lot of creators are missing, frankly, right? So can you just dive a little bit deeper into like how you were able to accumulate that list?
Well, so getting the people is a result of having art assets, visual things to show people constantly throughout the duration of the project. Anytime I had a new piece of art commissioned, I would always try to show it off, send out an email or to the list of people that I had saved in our MailChimp list. Also, I tried to always engage with people. I kept a database of what are all of our channels that our customers, where do they hang out? So we have a Facebook group. We have Facebook, our own Facebook group for Ascendancy. And then there's also very popular board game Facebook groups where exponentially more people hang out, you have more reach, but you need to be a little more careful about the way you try to market to them or promote your project, right? You can't be too direct about that. You kind of have to say things like, hey, which piece of art do you think looks cooler? This one or that one? If you just come out and say, hey, check out my new project, people tend to not like that. So you have to market differently depending on the channel. Reddit, they're also very sensitive, right, to people who are trying to just blatantly promote a product. So you have to become part of the community, engage with the people, and show your face for all these different channels. So that's like the way of getting people on the list, and always trying to be consistent about sending regular updates to them. And that's not easy to do, even though I have a reminder that says every week you should send out a newsletter, to everybody on the list. You don't always have any content. You don't always have energy to put this stuff together. So what worked for me was having a process that I could commit to that say, all right, I need to get at least one update out every week, right? That's like the bare minimum that I can do. If I'm not doing that, like I'm just really just squandering my list and I'm not capitalizing on it. So I would really say, all right, what can I notify people? Maybe it's a new piece of artwork. Maybe it's a new mechanic that I've been working on. And I haven't been great about this, right? There's plenty of weeks that I missed this, that I didn't do it. But at least having the intention, at least having the goal to do it, and doing it a lot of the time, if not all the time, I think helped get to that number of $100,000 on day one, which I knew was going to be mission critical, because if you don't fund on the first day and fund well, it's easy to get ignored and fall into, as you know, Kickstarter's abyss or basement or whatever you call it. So I knew day one was really critical. Another thing we did was sent a survey asking people, hey, are you planning to back the game on day one? And we had like about 500 people, and the number was a little lower than I expected. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then we asked, well, what would it take for you to become a day one backer? And this is, I think, an area where Launch Boom has a secret sauce, whereas if you can offer somebody an exclusive something, some kind of special offer that distinguishes them, that rewards them for becoming a day one backer, it makes a lot of sense to me. The place where I think you have to be careful is there's completionists in the board game world who want to have access to everything. And I'm working through this now, where we've had backers who they found the project early, they pledged the dollar. For people who don't know, do you want to explain how it works, Kevin?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do it now that you've run it yourself?
Yeah, they pledge a dollar pre-campaign, and that gives them access to an exclusive piece of content. In our case, it was an alternate art miniature. So they get this really cool miniature. The only way you can get it is if you back the game either on day one, or you pledge a dollar through the Launch Boom platform, which kind of holds your hand as a publisher or designer, where it makes it easy to set this up. But anyway, the point is it gives exclusivity to your game, to some components. But in our case, we had backers who came along later in our process who didn't know about our game, pre-launch. They still want access to this content. So we're trying to come to a solution where we can either sell this exclusive product later on after the close of the campaign during the pledge manager. That way they could still get it, but they'll have to pay for it, whereas the early backers, early supporters, gotten for free or just pledging a dollar essentially. Or we make it available to everybody. That way, nobody misses out essentially. So this is something we're navigating right now. As a publishing company, as a new publishing company, we want to make everybody happy. At the same time, we want to make it fair to everybody. So these are just some of the things I think people are going to have to think through as they're adopting these platforms and these new marketing strategies that make a lot of sense. And it seems to have worked for us. We had, I think, 275 people pledge a dollar as a pre-campaign offer through the Launch Boom platform, which I thought was pretty good. I'm not going to know how many of those people converted, I think, until I get the actual pledge emails from Kickstarter at the end of the campaign. But once I get those numbers, I'll be able to know, like, what was our conversion rate? Was it 30%? Was it 40%? Or whatever it might have been. Because those day one people, they really helped this campaign. It gave fuel to this rocket to really allow it to flourish to where it is now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And thanks for outlining that for some of the audiences listening to the podcast here. The key is to build up a large enough list leading up to the launch so that there's less guessing involved, right? And what Matthew was mentioning earlier regarding that dollar pledge is that's the true positive indicator that we see within pre-launch marketing, where you are almost verifying the fact that they're truly interested in purchasing your products. And also it allows you to see which channels, right? Like Matthew talked about all the different channels, Facebook group, his own personal Facebook group for the game, the board game group that's open to everyone, the Reddit groups, etc. by using that reservation funnel, you can see, hey, where do I focus on more of my efforts, right? Especially when you're using advertising. You don't want to spend a bunch of advertising dollars and not know, and just get a bunch of emails, which is what most people do, by the way, hoping that those emails convert into backers, versus when you get that dollar, again, like I mentioned earlier, is the true positive indicator. So thank you for elaborating on that, Matthew. So going back to the different channels and the board game groups, you talked about what not to do, right? No one likes the person that drops it and says, hey, check out my project, you're supported, etc., and then goes away and then comes back when they have their next project. You mentioned being consistent, engaging, participating. What does that engagement look like? Is there a schedule that you follow like you did with a newsletter, or you tried to follow like the newsletter? What were some of the posts that you made? How did you engage?
I was pretty granular about it. I have an Excel file where I just list out by row all of the channels where I need to show my face. So I think I have 12 different Facebook groups. Some of them are general board gaming. Some of them are like game specific, games that are like similar to Ascendancy. And then of course our personal Facebook group. So I put a date in the columns, and I knew that, all right, I haven't made a post in this group in a week or two. It's time for me to participate over there, because Facebook doesn't really make it easy to be systematic about this, right? You need to. I have a browser tab with like all the different groups open all the time, so that I can just open that one Chrome browser instance and I have like all 12 groups right there. And it's a lot easier for me to navigate rather than having to try to remember, like, oh, what was the name of this group or that group, or when was the last time I posted there, right? Because you don't want to do too much. You don't want to be annoying, like I was saying, but at the same time, you do need to show your face and you do need to contribute to the conversation and add something. And like I said, I'm not the best at this. I'm not the most consistent at it, but in having a process, at least I can try to commit to the process rather than the outcome, or like, it also increases your chance doing this of having a hit. What I mean by that is, I had a few posts that had like almost 100 comments. It only happened a few times, but this really drove traffic to our page. And while it was rare and I wish I could duplicate it, you don't really know when it's going to happen. It's a weird alchemy of the Facebook algorithm and when you get promoted and how quickly people respond. And if you get lucky and this happens, I think I posted, I literally just I got the prototype at home. I took a picture on my kitchen table because I was excited about it. And I just posted it to, I think Board Game Revolution or Board Game Geek, Board Game Group. I don't remember which one. And I just said, hey, check it out. We just got our prototypes. Like it didn't take me long to even think about this post. And that post got almost 100 comments and replies and drew thousands of people to the Board Game Geek page, to our website, ascendancy4x.com. So you can get lucky, is my point, by being consistent. The more, that cliche Wayne Gretzky quote, the more shots you take, the luckier you get, or something like that, the more you score. So that was my thinking on trying to be consistent.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So that post that you're talking about specifically was about your game. What are the other categories of posts you're making at those groups?
Let me try to pull it up if I could find it.
Sure.
Because I did actually make categories for this.
And are those categories like trying to help other people develop their games and commenting on their games? Is it providing feedback? How are you? Because ultimately you got to provide value for people to respect you and provide value to you and check out your game.
Exactly. So, so giving value to other people's projects, I think is easier because I don't have to think about it a whole lot. Like if somebody's posting something cool about their game, I can just like it and I can say that looks great, or did you think about this other thing, right? That's kind of natural. When I'm trying to promote my own game, I have to put it into a silo, and it's either showing off a mechanic and asking for feedback, showing some new art assets and saying, what do you think of this? Doing some kind of A/B comparison of how do you like this compared to that? These types of questions, I think, naturally facilitate a conversation and people to participate. Now, it doesn't always work. Sometimes I would make these posts and like nobody would reply. Sometimes they have these like weird, it's just a weird algorithm, and you really never know what's going to happen. So again, just being consistent, and sometimes I'll have no idea what to say, and I'll just like try something random. So I think it's just, you just got to experiment. You just got to be consistent. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this. I'm still figuring it out.
Were you able to pull up some of the categories of posts?
Yeah. So one is like funny stuff, like memes, doing a spotlight on a mechanic, announcing a milestone that we just hit something, something that I call just like get hype, which is just something that looks or sounds really exciting. Those are some of the categories that I have of content.
That's perfect. Yeah. So, for everyone that looks at a successful campaign or a project that goes, wow, they don't see all the stuff behind it, right? There's obviously a lot of thought and effort that went into creating the system and even creating the different categories of posting. So now you're, most of the way through your campaign. Like I mentioned earlier, you just have 5 days left in your campaign. How does it feel to have all this traction and thousands of customers? I remember being there myself in a few of the campaigns. I don't think I even shared this with you yet, Matthew, but prior to joining LaunchRoom, I actually was a product creator myself and launched 7 of my own products, physical products, not games. So definitely understand some of the feeling that you might be having right now, but I want to hear it directly from you and to share with the audience, because it must be a combination of excitement and also like responsibility, right, to deliver, and all of these people messaging you. I mean, thousands of backers, that's a lot of people messaging you.
It's a lot, yeah. So I thought I was prepared. I'll say this because I listened, I read a lot of firsthand accounts of people who launch projects. So I was like, I'm okay. Like I can be steady during this process. I'm not going to get all on this roller coaster, as they say, of emotions. Completely went out the window. Like it completely grabbed me and made me super excited on the first 2 days. And then, it starts to drop, and then I started to worry. And then it like dropped a lot, and I was like, this is it. Like the project is over. Like nobody cares about it. I started seeing the cancellations coming in. Like, we have a problem. What are we going to do about this? So it really does go from like bliss, like everything's great. We have a funded project, a funded company, to everybody like hates it. They're being critical now. Like people, because you go through all the phases that the backers go through, where they have this initial excitement, then they start digging into it deeper, and they have more detailed questions. So my job has been really trying to, there's nobody more passionate about my project than me. So I feel like my job really is to communicate that and explain to everybody why I believe in this so much, and really convince them that it is worth their time, it is worth their money, and if they're gonna love this thing, it's gonna be great. So that's been my main task, I'd say right now, is putting that forth, being there in every single comment section, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Reddit, whether it's wherever. If somebody has something to say about it, and I have information to contribute, I need to share it. And so this is what I've been doing pretty much all day during the campaign, as well as, of course, working on the updates. I mean, I have a few people help. My brother's helping me now, but there's just so much to do. There's always more tasks that there's not enough hours in a day there's always another thing you can do to make your project better and your communication more clear and more consistent. And trying to do, it can drive you crazy. And my feeling on it is, it's my, there's nothing else I'd rather do, I guess. That's why I'm doing it. And ultimately, I do love this. I love the project, and the backers have been great. Everything they say, I take very seriously. Like, I really take it to heart. If they have a concern about a stretch goal or a game mechanic, I'm right there with them, and I feel everything that they're saying. It's like all this energy is directed right at you, right at your baby, which I've been working on for 5 years. So I can't not take it personally, and make sure that I put everybody's concerns at ease, And if there is a problem, if I did miss something, to make sure that we can correct it and make it better and improve it. And if we said something wrong, I mean, we've made plenty of mistakes during the campaign. We're doing our best to fix all of them. And I think for the most part, we've been getting it right. We need to keep doing that all the way until we deliver. So the job never ends. It's just, this is what it is, this is what I signed up for. Here it is. And for better or for worse, this is what's happening.
Yeah. And, also you want to keep in mind that it's usually the, we have the negative bias in our brain, right? Like there's probably 99% of the people are super stoked and excited and happy, but there's always going to be 1% that are going to be, some of them constructive, right? But some of them just straight critical of a project. And you just have to take a step back and look at the picture as a whole. And it's very easy as a creator, especially it is your baby that you've been working on for 5 years, to focus on just the constructive and just the critical.
There is a less than 1% of people who are just negative, right, and not constructive. But there are certainly a percentage of people who are critical, but they could be right? And it's important to recognize what they're saying and address it and fix things if it needs fixing. So that's what I'm committed to at this point.
That's wonderful. So now you've had this massive success. It's just your first game, right? I know you're still in the middle of it, so you might not have even thought about it yet, but what does the roadmap look like? What's next? Do you have version 2? Do you have an expansion?
Yeah. Well, okay. So we'd love to do that stuff. We need to get Ascendancy done first, because these backers this month have gotten us to where we are. They're allowing us to make this and put this into the world. They've allowed this to be a real company. So our focus has to be on delivering this to make sure that this goes off without a hitch. And as soon as the close of the campaign, we have scheduled out time to just do the real development, balancing, making sure that everything's polished as much as it possibly can be before we get these final files over to the factory for production. So that's what we're really focused on, is making this game as great as it can be before we start looking at expansions and additional content, things like that. So as you know, there's been plenty of bigger game publishers who've had issues this year by launching simultaneous projects and getting to a situation where you're robbing Peter to pay Paul by launching, getting a new payday for a new project. You're using those funds to deliver your last project. We don't ever want to be in that position as a company. So One More Turn Games is never going to launch another project while we still have this one in the queue that needs to get fulfilled.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned your day job and the overnight success years in the making. What was your day job, and what were some of the things that you felt, from your entrepreneurial journey in the past in building and selling a business that carried over to this one?
Well, working as a technology consultant in the IT world, I would say has almost nothing in common with making board games, in the sense that in the regular work world, you make an appointment, you say something's going to get done within 2-week time frame. You're working with professionals who are going to show up on time, and it's not like that in the working world. People are you're dealing with artists, you're dealing with creative people who kind of have their own idea of I guess what commitment, what getting things done in time looks like. So I found that finding talent who not only can deliver great work, but can do it reliably, who can do it consistently, who you can depend on is extremely rare, almost impossible to find people that have this combination of things. So when I find these people, I've tried to, to me, they're worth their weight in gold. So I've really prioritized that things are going well for them, working with us, when working with me. So yeah, prioritizing people. And talent is really king in any creative industry, and it's certainly no different when it comes to board games. So recognizing it and fostering it and not taking it for granted ever, because I think hiring somebody, an artist, let's say on ArtStation, this is the easiest thing in the world. What's almost impossible, again, is somebody who's really great, somebody who is dependable, and somebody who's available, right, during your time frame. So these are some of the lessons I would say, some things to watch out for, because really all the game is, you've got the mechanics and you've got the art assets, the visual assets, which become your marketing materials. So this is what the game is. And I think the bar to design the game, whereas that was, I would say, the worst of my skill sets going into this 5 years ago. I designed games, but nothing big like this, nothing published. I knew that that would be relatively easier than, I guess, as a 45-year-old man trying to learn how to be an illustrator, right? But that said, it's still extremely difficult to design a great game, something genre-defining, something that's going to have legs and be evergreen over the years. That's really hard. I think anybody can design a game, but I knew that to make the game undeniable, I was also, again, going to have to commit to a process. And for me, that process was identify the weakest part of the game, of the project, and just focus on that until it's at least 1% better every day. And I knew that if I could do that, and I didn't do it every day, but I did it a lot, I knew that I would be able to finish the project and get it done, because it was just overwhelming. It felt so far away from being able to finish, because this is a giant game. There's so much going on. There's so many mechanics. I had to throw the whole game out and rebuild it from the ground up at least 4 times. So if I didn't have this process to fall back on, it never would have gotten finished. So that's something that really helped me get this over the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, spending 5 years on it and, attending Gen Con in 2018 and just getting the game launched now, I can imagine everything in between what that could have looked like. So what does it look like to contract with illustrators and find illustrators and work with them on deadlines, timelines? And then when you do go through each one of those 4 cycles and scrapping out the game and rebuilding it, are you able to reuse a lot of those creatives and assets? What does that, like, hiring and retaining those people look like? And then the scrapping out process, the redoing of it, what does that look like?
So we've had 4 lead artists on Ascendancy and 1 graphic designer, 1 lead graphic designer from Game Trays. His name's Daniel Alves, does a great job. And Noah from Game Trays has engineered the trays also, did a great job on the engineering side of the game. We had probably 5 times that number of people, if not 10 times that number, who just didn't work out for one reason or another, due to schedules, due to, not turning the work in, or just creative visions. As a designer who doesn't do the illustrations himself, I had to become, by necessity, the art director of this project. And we have a ton of art assets. We have a ton of illustrations, and getting them all to be cohesive together was a big challenge for me. It's not easy. It's just a lot of work, and constant revisions, constant back and forth, constant iteration, not just the game mechanics, but the art as well. Getting everything together, getting the marketing. You have to iterate on marketing. I mean, the Facebook ads themselves, they only worked for a little while. After a while, people, you need to change your creatives there. You need to change your messaging. So anytime, I was working with different contractors during the course of this process, you become a manager, and that you're not just a game designer, right? If you're publishing. Now, granted, I'm sure it's very different if you're an established company, if you've put out a few games. But for somebody like me, learning all this stuff was something that I had to commit to, and I knew that to do this right, to get to a genre-defining, undeniable product, I was going to have to go all in on this. So ultimately, I said, you know what? I don't have time to work a full-time job and get Ascendancy in shape to the point that I know it needs to be. And that was a risk. That was a scary thing for me to do. But I knew it was the right thing for me to do. And luckily I had enough cushion built up over time that I had enough savings that I knew I had some runway to get it over the finish line. But yeah, hitting that launch button on launch day, I didn't know if it was going to be successful. I was confident we would fund because of using professionals and tools and things like Launchboot. I knew we had enough day one people to show up, but I didn't know how much. It was such an unknown thing. So I'm really thankful it turned out well. And my intuition was right. I had a feeling it would do well. I knew that as a creative work, only I could do this. I knew this was never going to exist in the world. Because Ascendancy as a game is a mashup of all the things I loved in fantasy video games growing up as a kid and board games. And I wanted to put it all together into one epic game that would give me that feeling of progression, of satisfaction that I was going through a real hero's journey. So I think I had enough passion to stick with it and keep going, because if I didn't, I would have given up a long time ago. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. It does. And, just to build off of that, what was a horrible mistake or failure that ultimately, felt like it was the end of the world, right? Along the way? It doesn't even have to be relevant to the game or development of the game, but anything that happened along the way that now in hindsight you can look back and say, wow, that really positively shaped me down the line.
The stretch goals are a recent example in that I had an idea of how many and what they would be, but when our funding went higher than expected, they kind of went out the window, and we had to scramble to figure out how we're going to redo this in a way that the backers feel like they're invested in this journey that has the game become successful. They will also be benefiting from that. But yeah, we didn't get it right. I mean, for example, we had a stretch goal for a spiral-bound reference guide. It might not sound like a big deal to everybody, but when you're investing almost $200 in the all-in version of this game, that's a notable investment. You want to make sure that you're getting what you're saying you're paying for. Anyway, we had the spiral-bound version instead of the stapled version, which is a little cheaper to manufacture, and it's a nicer quality of life when you have a spiral-bound book, because you can open it and it's half the size compared to if you have something stitched. It becomes double size when you open it. Anyway, our assets that we used on the Kickstarter page, I didn't realize this, already showed the spiral-bound version, and then we offered it as a stretch goal. So people didn't like that. So they felt like they were being duped. And you know what? They were right. It was an oversight on my part. I didn't realize that the art that we were using to show the instructions and the scenario booklet were already showing the spiral-bound book. So, I had to own that. I'd say, look, you're right. This was an oversight. So what we did to make it right was we just made it, as a free bonus for everybody. Does it cost more money? Yes, it does. But we have to focus on earning trust for people as a new publisher, right? That has to be our focus, because if you can't make those mistakes and not fix them, otherwise it's just going to derail the whole campaign. So we knew that was something we had to fix. That didn't go right, but I think we've solved it. And will we have more of those? I hope not. But we're keeping an eye out for them and trying to solve them as they come up.
Yeah, and that builds trust along the way too, right? When people see that, hey, you're human too, and you made a mistake and you owned up to it, and now you're going to go and fix it. And you're public about that as well. So props to you, Matthew.
They telling me, they're not shy in those comments about if you make a mistake.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, they'll really put the fire under your butt. That's for sure. So, this is your first game that you're publishing. You've had, quite a few different experiences all over the place, from being a technology consultant to being an audiophile, right, that you told me about, and geeking out on, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
I've been a lifetime musician. I produce rock music. I've got amplifiers and drums, and I'm into vintage microphones with tubes in them. So it's my passion. I love creating things from nothing. And for me, I feel like I made this comparison before. When you create a production, a track or a song, everything matters, right? It's all if one instrument, if the snare drum isn't cutting through the mix in a nice way, or if anything is out of place as far as the frequency range or the rhythm or anything, it kind of throws off the whole track, the whole song. And I approach game design the same way. Whereas when I'm building a track for music, I also try to iterate, 1% at a time. We swap out a snare drum, swap out a guitar riff for something that works a little bit better. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be 1% better than what it was before. So when designing this project, I took the same approach, and I just tried to make everything a little bit better, looked at the weakest part of it, fixed that, and so I tried to apply what I learned in the music world to this.
I love that. So, yeah, I mentioned all of those things because the question I was leading up to was, you do all these different things and have such a, varied experience. What is the purpose of doing all of these different things? And what is the purpose of launching the game? Like, I guess the big question is, what gives you meaning?
Well, there's a few things. One is I wanted this product to exist, and it did not exist. And I've played a lot of board games, and I could not find anything that gave me that same feeling of progression that Ascendancy does. So I wanted to bring this into the world. Sort of selfish reasons. I wanted to play this game, and I just wanted to do this. And then, on the company side, I'd rather invest my time, my energy, my passion into something that I love doing. That's not to say tech consulting isn't a great thing. It's a great career, but it's not the same as following something deep in you. That's the result of childhood, the whole formative life of playing these games, having these amazing experiences with them, and being able to share them with other people. So being able to give that to others, everything that goes into this game and is everything that I've experienced that was cool and good and fun, and had to share that with other people. But that's really my goal.
You launched August 7th of 2023, your campaign. When did you leave your job?
It was probably 5-6 months ago or so, I'd say. Yeah.
Wow.
Stopped doing project work and was like, I need to get this in champion.
Wow. So you really, it must have been scary, right? And aside from what you mentioned, which is, needing the time to get it to move forward, there was also 4 years prior to that, or 5 years prior to that you could have made that decision. What was the tipping?
I think I felt confident enough in our list and in the kind of feedback we were seeing. People seemed enthusiastic about it. I was confident we would fund. And I knew the one thing missing was time. I have 2 little kids, and I don't have much of a life outside of work, but I have somewhat of a life. So I knew that one thing had to go, and I figured, you know what, why not take a shot, try it. The worst that can happen is the project is not successful, and I'll have to go back to working a job. That's literally the worst that can happen. So I figured, why not try it, give it a shot, just do it.
Yeah, I just want to also highlight what you said there. It's a lot of people put things a little bit out of order, right? We always, as entrepreneurs, there's a million things to do. And especially with a personal life like yourself, 2 kids, you just have to highlight and focus on the things, the one domino, right? That if it knocked down makes everything else easier and necessary. I try to ask myself that every day, every morning, or every week, every month, every quarter. And for you and for most other creators out there, whether it's a board game or a physical product, the thing I want to highlight is the building a sufficient size list that you feel confident in is by far the most important domino that you have to put in place, so that everything else falls into place. So
I agree. I think this is one of the main mistakes I see other creators make, where they've got a great idea, they've got a great product, they don't have the marketing in shape yet, and they haven't cracked that code, because it uses a different part of the brain, And if it's not something you want to or can do yourself, you got to pay people who have that strength. If that's your weakness, right? It's so important. You have the best game in the world, but if people don't know about it, you don't have anything.
That's right. That's right. And I think some of that comes down to fear as well, Matthew, right? From being a creator myself previously, like you just want to build and get it to perfection because it allows you to distract yourself from your biggest fear, which is putting the product out there and maybe people don't like it. But actually, the key is, like you just said, to put it out there, do the marketing, see if people like it. If they don't, then continue to iterate to a point where people like it. And that's where you're really going to find true progress.
And it's painful. It's not fun to get your baby called ugly, to show up to a convention and people find out all the problems with your product. It is not fun at all. But yeah, it's growth. It's like strength training or whatever. But it's worth it in the end, right?
Yeah. And I love that you did that. That was one of the first things that you did when you were creating your game in 2018. Go to Gen Con, pay a lot of money to go to Gen Con and show it to people and have people tell you, hey, how do you optimize these win conditions, et cetera. And I think that's a huge reason why you're seeing so much success today. You got it in front of people as soon as you could. So what's, now your days are, probably just back to back interacting with the community and answering their questions, concerns, and making sure you deliver and coming up with a plan in place. But prior to this, you talked a lot about the process of engagements, coming up with systems for that. It seems like you're a very process-oriented guy, and I love that because as long as you have a good process and you follow it consistently, the results eventually does come, right? If you improve 1% every single day, I mean, what's the number? I think like 27x better by the end of the year. So what does a good day consist of for you?
Yeah, so my process here is wake up and go for a walk outside. I find getting some sunlight is really helpful. Eating a little bit later than I might be hungry. I think being a little bit hungry in the morning can be helpful. Some of the doctors that I follow online, they kind of say this stuff helps, so I do it and it seems to work.
Who are those people that you follow?
I really like Andrew Huberman. He's got some great advice. But yeah, and then once I start my day, I'm just like locked in. I have all of my tabs. I just kind of go through them in order. I start with like the big picture, like what's our funding at? What's the main sentiment as far as the comments? Like, are people happy or are they not so happy with something? And then going in there, and then I collaborate with a few other folks to help me figure out, all right, what's our newsletter update going to be for tomorrow? We come up with a theme, and then we say, all right, what assets do we need to get this released? Then I'll communicate with the factory to find, okay, if we do this new stretch goal, does this, how much is this going to increase our cost of manufacturing the game? How's that going to affect the profitability? Is this going to make it, impossible, or is this something we could actually do? What funding do we need to get there? So weighing all these different things, thinking about like, how is this going to impact the future of the business? Because now I'm thinking about this as a business, whereas before it was a project. All this has to be accounted for. So, and then, I just work all day, basically. I'm definitely a workaholic, but it's not always the healthiest thing. So I do try to force myself to take breaks and do other things. I'm not always the best at it, to be honest, but I do see the value. And because if you're just grinding away all day, every day, I think it's really easy to get lost and into not such a good place mentally. So if I do try to force myself to take a break and do other things.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you do regularly that upgrades your body health? Mental clarity.
I force myself to go for a run too. In the middle of the day, always go for a run, at least 15, 20 minutes, come back, and getting sick, because you're in front of a computer all day. It's just not natural. It's not good. So you got to do something to counteract that. Trying to eat healthy. Again, I'm not the best at this, but I'm trying to not get too much saturated fat and things like this, it affects, I think the mind. Like, it's really hard to focus. I had no creative energy in the middle of the day. Let's say this in the morning and at night, the first 2 hours and last 2 hours, I'm just brimming with ideas and cool things. I had none of that in the middle of the day. So I try to put all my like hardcore process stuff right in the middle, stuff that I don't have to think about, stuff that's just like, all right, I know that I need to look at these numbers. I need to do these tasks. But stuff that's like working on a mechanic or something that's like more creative, like background story for one of the royal houses that's part of the game, right? That stuff I reserve for the creative time because I know that I'll have like actual output during that time of the day.
Yeah, so you really like have that self-awareness around, okay, what part of the day your body and your mind is most optimized for, and then you build your work around that, which I really love. And you and I have that actually very much in common. I'm definitely an early morning and late night guy, mostly late night actually, in terms of like thinking, creativity, even creating plans and thinking about the future and long term. During the days when I take all my meetings, etc., not that I don't need to think as much, but I can definitely do that without too much or as much creativity, right? And also the runs too. It's like I used to, lift weights, etc. But what I found is there's nothing that jacks up your heart rate more than just going out for a 20-minute run, right? You break a sweat within the first 3 to 5 minutes, and the rest you just come back with that dopamine, serotonin, and all of that's good stuff happening to your audience.
David Goggins calls it like zone 2 versus zone 4 or 5, like zones, right? So I try to think about that, like how much am I exerting right now? Will I have fuel in the tank later? Still do stuff like I don't want to burn up too much, but I want to burn up enough that I'm getting some exertion out of it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just on a run listening to his most recent book, Never for the third time. So I actually have a jiu-jitsu competition tomorrow, so I've just been listening to him on repeats, and I'm going through the weight cutting and cardio and all of that fun stuff.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's the best feel you can have, I feel. So I can't highly recommend David Goggins and his books enough. It's his books, I would say, have made a tremendous impact on me personally. It sounds like he's definitely had some influence on you as well, Matthew. The 2 books, right? The second one, most recent one, is Never Finished, and the first one, the name is skipping my mind. Do you have it?
Can't Hurt Me.
Can't Hurt Me. That's right. And he does like podcasts in between each chapter as well, and so the audio version is just fantastic. So I know you have a lot to get to, and you have 2 sons, so we're gonna wrap this up here shortly, Matthew. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with? Where can people find you online?
So the Kickstarter is live now. I don't know when this will go out, but it'll be live until August 31st. And then we'll have a late pledge and a pledge manager eventually. But yeah, Ascendancy4x.com is the game page. You can check it out. You can come hang out in our Discord. I'm always chatty on there. We've got a lot of enthusiastic folks on the Board Game Geek forums. You've got Ascendancy. Yeah, pretty much those are the main spots.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And this podcast will be coming out after the game closes, but I'm sure from your website that you just mentioned, people will be able to find how to order your game from there when the podcast is out. And thank you so much, Matthew, for taking time out of your very, very busy day and your kids, time with your kids to join me on the Launch Boom podcast here today. And I mean, even during your campaign too. So can't tell you how much we appreciate that. I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot from hearing this podcast and hearing your journey and your thought processes. Really appreciate everything that you have to share.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun chatting with you, Kevin. And yeah, thanks for your help with Launch Boom. It's definitely helped our campaign.
That is music to my ears. One of the most satisfying things that I can hear from anyone.
It was. I would definitely use you guys again for the next one.
Thanks, Matthew. I mean, we do this day in and day out, and definitely spend more than 8 hours a day working on this. So it's really, really satisfying.
Honestly, I think it's a bargain. I mean, for the value you get for what Launch Pool costs, I feel like it's a no-brainer. And yeah, I mean, why not do it? You know.
I appreciate you saying that, Matthew. I'm definitely gonna edit that snippet out. All right. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you.